Okay, 10 seconds starting now. Welcome to Pixels for People 2024 here on Twitch.tv, a weekend-long speedrunning marathon raising funds for charity for Child's Play, helping kids in hospitals with toys, games, and therapy across the globe. This is Super Jamoose, just like before, and back for more. Hope you've all been having fun on your fabulous Saturday. Glad to see you all again, and I am thrilled to see that now in the middle of day 2, we have raised $1,465 for the charity. Thank you all so very, very much for your generosity and for your support. Coming up, we have a double dip from the esteemed TempestMask1000. We're starting things off real fast with Spark the Electric Jester 2. Tempest, if you're ready, let's get after it.
I always love having Super Jamoose as a host. It's good to have you along for the ride, buddy. And hello, friends and fellow gamers. It's been a while. I would like to make it quickly known that, yeah, it has been a bit since I've done any kind of speedrunning period, but I figured, had to submit for Carter's wonderful event. Pixels for People has always been a great time, and I'm honestly surprised that we get to do a double showing today, but we're gonna have fun with this one. So we're gonna start things off with Spark the Electric Jester 2. As I set up the game really quick, this is a fresh new file, by the way. I'm going to tell you all just a little bit about it. This is a Sonic Adventure inspired sort of Devil May Cry light combat sort of game involved. There's a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog DNA interwoven into this game series. There's also a little bit of Kirby as well that still persisted through this particular entry as on top of that. And I also want to make it clear that we are playing as Fark the Electric Jester, not Spark, for this particular game, because apparently Lake Pepper, the dev, wanted to make a Metal story for this fan favorite character. However, to make up for that, we got Spark right here. Don't mind the fact that he's in his wind form. This is official plush from the dev himself and Makeship. It's some pretty cool stuff. But anyway, so this is going to be any percent minimum tech. This is a category that features going as fast as possible without the use of what's called switch boosting. My commentator and I will explain what that is pretty shortly, but Haxum, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Haxum, your lovely commentator for this run. I am not commentating Chris Crackers.
But hey, we're going to have a good time regardless.
Yeah, we're going to have a good time.
Heck yeah. So, real quick on the down low here, what I am doing right now is setting up for the first level, and time will begin once I select Quit to Menu, and the reason for this is because we do not time Fark School as part of your overall time, so for some reason pressing Quit to Menu will immediately bring you to FM City, which is the first level, so if everything is going accordingly, then my auto splitter should start things up when I hit that button. If not, I'll just have to do a little bit of manual work, but we will begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. And we're off. Okay, cool, it works. Let's get this one going. So, like I said, there's a little bit of Kirby DNA involved in this as well, I should mention. Anyway, I'm just going to actually take a moment to turn on VSync. And with that, yeah, sorry, I noticed a bit of a spike in my stream settings. We're just doing this for safety's sake. All right, and we're off. Ooh, okay. We're just going to press onward, and with that, we're going to talk a little bit about the main trick of this game. This is the Magnet Dash. So it involves the stand-in for the homing dash. Oh, that's not good. Well, we're going to try that again. Haxum, feel free to take over on this one.
So, Edgy Jester is Shadow, and it's completely different, but also still Shadow.
Pretty much so.
And Plasma Sword is mainly used for combat, but it can also be used for some really cool platforming glitches later on in the run.
Well, particularly something that is a unintended effect with the power-up that allows you to get some real nice distance covered as a result of it, so just a little something to keep in mind there.
And Power Armor is going to be our main combat ability for the run, but it's also going to be used as another sort of platforming ability because of its longer dash, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. And the difference though being that Power Armor has a singular but longer mid-air dash, whereas the difference being that Edgy Jester has up to 3 mid-air dashes. So Edgy is very much a platformer compatible power-up. Like, it is definitely the main when it comes to the platforming aspects of the game. Power Armor, though, still has some platform uses, especially in casual play as well. We also have 2 other Jester powers involved within the game's very short repertoire compared to what the first game had going. Those are Biker and Hammer Jester, but we do not need to use those. Biker has some purpose within IL speedrunning as well as any percent if you so choose to, but it's mainly not applied for reasons of we don't really need to do it. And yeah, I guess you could say it's more of a Mintech console compatible sort of thing, because this game is also out and available on the Xbox One. So yeah, just a little fun factoid for those that might want to try that version. I do apologize, by the way, if my timer may be looking a bit faded. I just realized that the green split right there might be incompatible with the keying. We'll see. But yeah, that was Rhino Dino right there. That's our first instance of, like I said, Devil May Cry combat, sort of. There is a parry system involved. There is a parry with the shield ability that Fark has, and it is broken as heck. So the concept being for every attack that I block, and this can also be obstacles as well within the stage, like laser gates, the energy gauge gets higher. And so, as you noticed, within the halfway mark was a double damage multiplier, and then in the full gauge, it was a 3 times multiplier, and that is pretty busted. So bosses can go down like paper mache. And now you're seeing another trick on display, but I think I'm going to botch that because, yeah, we gotta... Okay, so there was a kill plane right there. We're not going to do that again. It's unfortunate. But that right there is our first instance of the Plasma Sword glitch, which, when a certain strong attack is utilized, the game suddenly increases the amount of backwards push that the projectile attack gives Fark. And so we use that as a way to cover large amounts of distance, and it's something that that a fellow speedrunner of this game in Nick Cart had discovered and was a major pioneer towards cracking the code within the Mintech category, which for the longest time had absolutely no activity aside from ILs and a few discoveries made with the Plasma Sword glitch on its own by fellow runner The Mimic. So shout out to Mimic. And ultimately, we use a combination of that along with something that Haxum has dubbed the gem, the jump extension magnet, which applies to holding the jump button down when the launch occurs. But the specific magnet dash that I'm using here, I don't think I even I think Haxum explains the properties of the magnet dash, but in my case for the Plasma Sword glitch and that combination, I'm actually using a exhausted magnet dash, which is what happens when you mag dash by expending all of your normal air dashes. So it's a lot more useful for the vertical portions of the game, if you will. It gives you more straightforward vertical height, but it also can change depending on the angle, the trajectory as well. It might sound a bit complicated, but it's actually pretty simple once you get the hang of it, as well as the cancellation involved for dashing once the initial momentum of the homing attack or the Jester dash starts. Now, I'm going to show off a nice little trick that I honestly don't have to, but we're going to do it just because, and it involves clipping right here. If I can just quickly get in this gap at the right angle. It's not quite behaving, though, so game, please. Okay, we're going to do this a couple more times. There we go. But let's see now if I can still avoid the death plane. We got it. Okay, cool. So in order to get through that gate, you actually have to defeat that mini-boss. Otherwise, normally that's impassable. Faster runs have determined that it is just as viable to take out the enemy, and you're not really going to lose too much time for it. In fact, the debate is on whether it is faster or not to just simply take care of it. But yeah, I just I feel like, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of swag, if you will, and I always appreciated the fact that certain versions of the game had skips like this, where we'll also be showing off a nice little trick near the end of this level here, Floria Plant, that is also very much exclusive to the version I'm playing on. See, the developer Lake Feppard is usually pretty understandable with speedrunning tech. There are also tricks, though, or clips that he prefers, he might not be the biggest fan of. And so, what he does allow us to do is we can officially downpatch the version of Spark 2 that we are playing via the Steam Betas feature. So I am currently using 1.2.1, which is easily the most busted version, but also stable enough for speedrunning that it is the preferred version as well. This category also does have a potential benefit of using 1.3, where some tricks were still left in because they just hadn't been discovered at the time, but there are also a few downsides to doing so as well. We won't necessarily go into it, but for now I'm going to show off the second of our little clips, and okay, that's not going to work. So we're just going to hit restart to checkpoint because that's usually a bit faster, and that game wants me to go normal. But we like to go off the beaten path, isn't that right, Haxum?
Yeah, we can go off the beaten path sometimes.
Absolutely. That's the nice thing about this game, too, is that this was made with the idea that unless there's a kill plane, you can generally jump to any portion of the level as you so please. Lake is usually not picky about that, and it's also something that carried into Spark 3, which is a fantastic game and one I highly recommend you all try to pick up. But right now, we have beaten the fourth of the 14 action stages, so now we're just going to jump into our next boss. This is Turbo Bird, and I'm going to pass it on over to Axum for a brief explanation on how this fight will work. I was going to say, why are you not skipping the cutscene? And then after that, we will pass it on over to Jamoose. So, Haxum, your explanation first, if you would please.
So, Turbo Bird is a relatively simple fight in the fact that it's very simple. But another thing about the bosses in this game, no RNG, which is a godsend.
Yeah, it's usually more of a pattern-based sort of thing, a general memorization, so to speak. But yeah, and then we've got this desperation move, which will force us to wait. So, Jamoose, this is a great time to talk about a few things right now for this wonderful event.
Oh, you bet. I actually have a donation right now.
Oh, heck yeah.
I have $20 coming in from Omega Wyvern and Tink Dora that says, gotta donate for our favorite Spark runner.
Aw, thanks, guys. Love you both. Some very good friends of mine that discovered me doing a Gungrave run for Stryzer's Game Over Cancer, and we've seen each other twice at this year's GDQs in person. They're wonderful people. Anything else we got, Jamoose?
That brings us to a total of $1,485. I would love to see $1,500 in the next little while. That would be pretty sweet.
I agree.
Remember, folks, we're working for Pixels for People here. This is a child's charity where we are trying to give toys, games, therapy for kids in hospitals. Their network expands to 190 network hospitals across the globe. They've been running since 2003. This is their 21st year in business, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. We're trying to help children play games, feel better. Every dollar counts. Thank you all so much for your support.
Absolutely.
Back to you.
Thank you, Jamoose. It's wonderful to have you on board with this again, by the way.
Yeah.
Jamoose and I are pretty good pals, and I gotta say, this man has a fantastic host voice. You seriously, if y'all enjoy me on the host mic, you ain't seen nothing until you seen Jamoose. I'm just saying with absolutely no bias whatsoever.
We've been working together since 2021, I believe.
Sounds about right, yeah. I feel like I first what was it, SGDQ Online?
It was SGDQ Online back in 21. Yeah, that was you never forget your first one, and that was the one I think I had the most fun with. That was an amazing night, for sure.
Absolutely.
Amazing couple of nights, I should say.
Oh yeah, definitely. So we're now moving into Castella Blanca. Floresta Blanca was a very straightforward level where I was trying to show off what used to be like, depending on when you would watch people run this game, this used to be like one of the first occasions of when we started utilizing the exhausted magnet dash. By the way, I do apologize if my frame rate's very flickery today. It seems as though tech does not want to play, but at least the stream is not crashing. So as long as that's the case, we'll roll with it, and that's all I can say right now. But yeah, I will say right now that in terms of overall programming, this game was built in the Unity engine, and it uses a engine that was made in Unity called Hedge Physics, which is something that was very impressively done by Lake. I would definitely say, though, that it got much better with Spark 3, and that's without a doubt. But it also stands to note the Magnet Dash does remain in Spark 3, but a lot of the tricks that you can utilize here in Spark 2 didn't necessarily make the cut. So both speedruns are very much their own unique bread and butter, and it's always marvelous to see just both in action, if you ask me. But Castella Blanca was a nice little throwback to levels like Hang Castle and Mystic Manor from Sonic Heroes, and now that we've clipped through the stage and avoided basically having to go through an entire labyrinth of twists and turns, we are now on what is the hardest difficulty curve of the game, because where Turbo Bird and Rhino Dino were pretty simple bosses, Float here is a lot more challenging, and Haxum, if you'd like to explain a little bit about that.
So, she is less telegraphable, and no RNG as aforementioned, and
yeah, she's got that little health drain zone as well. The red circle right there doesn't activate immediately, but when it starts moving, it will zap away your health. You also saw me do a little interesting trick right there where I went into the pause menu, I went into the options and changed my difficulty to Challenge Jester. What that does is I have 2 taps, so Spark can only take 2 hits and then he's dead. The plus side, though, is that your attack power greatly increases, so I will risk it for the biscuit, as I like to say, whenever I'm feeling it, and that's mainly it. That's just all you need to know about Challenge Jester, really. It's handy, but it also, you also got to be mindful of the inherent dangers. Most runners that would probably go for a top time might just straight up go for Challenge Jester the whole way through. And yeah, here's Shantoria Town. Another instance of we go through the level, we fly through it, and that was our first properly landed Plasma Jester jump boost with the exhausted magnet dashes. It was a nice little discovery that Nick found as a sort of alternative. Mimic also found what was for what is practically still the world record method, but it is a very hard one to master. That the fact that Nick found a nice alternative has made marathon runs with trying to go super duper fast with that sort of spiel much safer, in my opinion. But one of these days I do hope to eventually get it for myself, just so that I can start showing it off to others, and hey, who knows, maybe we could get a IL record from it, for all we know. It's never impossible, because like I said, this category has not seen the hugest amount of runner activity. It's mainly just me having tried to garner interest in it through my own attempt, and then Nick jumped on that, and that's basically it. I know our good friend Argic, I've shown the category to him. He is a Spark runner as well. Anybody that knows Argic, he's usually known for his Sonic runs, but I know he has shown a little bit of interest in that, and Arg, if you happen to be watching this, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing if you're still willing to give this a go, because this category is still pretty sweet. And I guess we never did talk about switch boosting, so the explanation on that one is this version was the only beta version that you can downpatch to, which allows holding down the Jester Power switch, which is through the D-pad, and then trying to mash the attack button, which gives you a crazy amount of speed, but it's also very, very bad on the hands if you don't know how to properly manage that. So yeah, it can basically give you cramps. It can do you some not so good things, and that's partly the reason why we came up with this category, the Spark community. But right now, this is Technoria City, and quick little shout out to Jet Set Radio, because that's what this vibe always brings me back to. I guess we can also say Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, because that's a very solid game, and one that I definitely need to jump back into soon. So with that, we are now jumping into a double boss feature. So we're going to start with EJ and then go into a guy named Double, literally. but we'll pass it back to Haxum. Explain a little bit about what makes EJ a bit tricky, at least for my liking.
Yeah, difficult to parry attacks, and there's an attack in the second phase that can hit you if you're not paying attention.
Oof.
And
Okay, that's not too bad, because I'm not on challenge Jester, but I gotta be a little more mindful as well.
yeah.
There we go. Yeah, this is a little graphically heavy. I got the feeling like my laptop is starting to bite back on me trying to play games like this one. I may have to eventually get an upgrade or something. Unfortunate.
So a bit of a flashing lights warning for the second phase of this fight.
Correct. And we'll be seeing that once the vocals kick in. So Double here has a shockwave attack that extends to the entire screen and basically flashes it. There's not really much else to it, so just be mindful if you are prone to any potential seizures or anything that can affect your health through flashing lights. Like that. There we go. So that is the first instance right there, but luckily these are parryable as well, and this is where you are absolutely going to want to keep that in mind for sure. Like, at this point, if you have not figured out how to parry, you're going to probably have a hard time. And then down he goes. So he's going to do a little double punch and then one final screen explosion. This one being a bit trickier to time, but... Oh, I botched it. Oh well. I tried. I want to bet it's the beard. It's because I've let this beard get scruffy, didn't I? I don't know, Haxum, what do you think?
I got shaved recently, so not really a big deal.
Eh. So welcome to Terminal Dragoon. I like trains.
I do also like trains, but I'm not gonna reference...
It is a wonderful reference. Yeah, shout out to Tom Scott and ASDF movie, ASDF movie, as we all called it back when we were growing up. We got ourselves some more bubbles to use. These bit bubbles are some of the best targets that you can find for magnet dashing in general. Enemies are always viable targets, but you absolutely... Oh, no. Come on, really? Ah, bah. That's what happens sometimes, eh? Well, I guess I could show off a little bit of... game? Why? Oh, my God. That's what we call marathon luck, folks.
Say the line.
Nope. That's happened before. I can't say that. I can't say the line. This is probably going to be the breaking of the streak.
Yeah.
It's for those that don't know, every time I usually do a marathon, in some way, shape, or form, the game gives me a "that's never happened before" moment. But at this rate, I've sped through Spark 2 enough that I feel like I've just run out of those at this rate. And I apologize if I'm repeating, if I'm sounding a lot redundant, because redundancy is very much redundant. Alright, we're just going to pick up a little bit of energy because we have another instance of a boss at the end of this level, except this one is mandated to be beaten in order to initiate the level end trigger. So, here's the Dragoon, or sorry, Dragon. I keep calling it a Dragoon. This has always been the case whenever I picked up this game. And just keep on fighting, and then bada bing, bada boom. Down he goes. Don't let your posture get like that, folks. It'll really throw out your spine and then some. And now to Scary Astropolis, where we have even more trains. It's a train station, or train yard, more trains. And that wasn't the worst launch, but not quite the one I wanted to get going either. So that's going to throw off my momentum just a little bit, but we'll make do, because that magnet dash is pretty tough. It requires the use of charging up your speed, going fast, and targeting the enemy at least a few seconds from when it spawns, because otherwise it goes into a different position, and that's just not fun. Now, I will give props to Lake Peppered really quick. for those that have not caught up with his recent doings, he has a F-Zero inspired game called XF Extreme Formula, which we did see a in-universe poster for with the main, I guess you could say main protagonist himself, and that was in Technoria City, so that's always been a nice little thing to realize, because, of course, he wasn't quite making his development on that game known at the time, so nowadays it is a thing, whereas back then it wasn't, and I always found that quite amusing of a reference. But aside from that, we were thrown off just a little bit back due to that death. It's a bit tragic, but what can you do? I think this will be a good time, though, to pass it on over to Jamoose at the moment, because I think we just hit 1,500, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we did. We just hit $1,500 for Pixels for People 2024, all to Child's Play. Thank you so very, very much.
Good job,
everyone. The donation that came in to sort of pushed us over, I think it's my fault, because I said I'd like to see 1,500 soon, please. The comment reads, "Challenge accepted." Mittens giving us the extra $15 to hit 1,500.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mittens. And hey, that's never a bad thing to apologize for, Jamoose, if you ask me. All right, here we go. So we are near the end of the stage. I'm going to try and pull off another exhausted magnet dash. There we go. It would have been a bit more preferred if we had that a lot more arced rather than straight up vertical, but that's just how it do sometimes. We'll just parry through that train, no problem, and then boom, we hit the goal. Nice. And you notice that sometimes when I clear levels, I get medals. There are two types of medals within the game. There are speed and score medals, and both are pretty self-explanatory. But the idea here is that... Oh, it seems my timer has stopped. Okay, hang on a second, because I think that's the auto-splitter making a bit of a mistake. So we'll worry about that in just a moment. But we're currently on Titanic Tower. And this is a very fun level, because this is also one of the inner workings of what led to the Mintech tricks. And we are looking okay for now. This skew is a little bit to the right, so I will be mindful of any bonk potentials, and I'll have to probably correct myself. But what you're seeing right now is a gravity skew that was found by Mimic. If we launch ourselves off of an upward slope like that, it just does this, and we can just keep on using the plasma sword projectile to push us up like that. That's okay. We'll let that be for now, because right at this current moment, there's no inherent danger. Okay, but now that's a problem, because I tried adjusting it anyway. So let's see if I can at least save this. Cool, we are good. So the problem with that is if you get the skew just like wrong in the slightest, and you also bonk into something, it just pushes you like that. And while I would sing my praises of the Hedge physics engine, the biggest problem I have with it is that if you try to go up an upslope, and the game just suddenly decides, okay, no, you're not running the upslope anymore. Yeah, it just suddenly has it where you're like, okay, so now you have to walk back up a ramp, and yeah, that's just rude. Not much you can do about that. So here's Flint and Haxim. Go ahead and talk about our speedy little samurai here.
Okay. So he is less
power-based, I guess you could say.
I don't know the word, but I'm sorry, guys.
No worries. All right, we're gonna just worry about some of his attacks. We're gonna keep our damage multiplier going. Like I said, parrying is very gracious. Even if you don't get a complete parry, that's not usually a problem. But now we're gonna risk it here. We're going to phase 2. He's gonna get a bit faster. I can take one more hit, and there we go. Like I said, the full risk involves going through Challenge Jester on the entire fight. We also noticed that he didn't explode. He actually just got back up, nodded, and then teleported out here. Yeah, he's not a bad guy, but he's also not our ally, at least not up until now. So now we're cool. We're we're chilling. And now we're in outer space. So, Planetary Stripe is the most unique level of the game for not having a single instance of enemies. So, score medals are specifically found via bit bubbles. You gotta collect bits and bit bubbles in order to try and get the high score medals. But aside from that, oh, by the way, we did forget to mention there are platinum and gold medals. So, there are two different types that you can get. And it all counts towards your completion rating of the game, too. Oh, gosh. That was... Okay, I guess I'll say it now. That's never happened before. Oh, joy.
He said the line. He said the line.
Scratch off your bingo cards, folks. Oh, jeez. Okay. Well, I say that because I've never fallen into that loop before. The thing about the gravity skewing is that you hit those warp zones and it changes the orientation of the level for you that way, but you have to touch those. And if I did it the wrong way, that would have looked poorly for me, because then trying to get through the stage as optimally as possible just becomes a bit more confusing by that aspect alone, so yeah. And just jump into here, get to the goal ring, and voila. So, only a few more stages to go, but we do have Hyperwrath Fleet coming up. In terms of Mintech, this is the longest level, because for a huge while, trying to optimize it was mainly all about switch boosting, and there was no real other way around it. It's just the scale of this level, the entire scope of its size that just works against it in that way, and while switch boosting is one part of the ingredient, it was also found that you can clip through a giant fan within the stage's geometry to go outside a stage, and the switch boosting acceleration is crucial in order to get to the other side of the stage to skip out, I'd estimate, a good 60% of it. So here we're not going to do that, but we're still going to try our best to schmoove. And this level clearly takes some cues from the opening cutscene of Sonic Unleashed. It's like that, but they actually turned it into a level that you can interact with, and it's beautiful. I would also say it's got a bunch of Final Fortress vibes as well from Sonic Heroes, or I think it's called Final Fortress anyway. I can't remember the act name, but I still have my copy of Heroes, so can't really fact check myself now. But if you know, you know. And with that, we're going to make our way into the giant background JPEG ship. But Jamoose, I think this would be a fun time to talk a little bit more about the event and what we are raising money for and all that jazz.
You bet. I don't have any known donations presently, but I do want to remind the folks that are chipping in their dollars, when you do donate, make sure you follow through and you allocate your donation dollars. There are some bid wars going on throughout the event. We have 2 of them that still have to be settled here on Saturday. There is, of course, the eternal decision of save or kill the animals for Super Metroid. Of course, we have to have that whenever Super Metroid is on the bill. But there's also the decision of our hero for Mega Man 10. You have as so many things in life, you got 2 options. You can either save the world as Mega Man, or you can go solo with Bass. You decide. All you gotta do, make sure that's put in when you donate.
I was honestly surprised when I heard Bass instead of Proto Man, but hey, Bass is a pretty cool character and a personal favorite of mine. I actually think it's a good time to then shout out Ian James Corlett, who is the voice of Mega Man in the Ruby Spears cartoon, and a wonderful VA from Canada as well, somebody who I had the pleasure of meeting at a local con here in Jersey at least a couple or few years ago. And I do believe he's going to be coming to New York Comic Con, which I will be attending, so if I get to say hi to him again, that'll be pretty sweet. I also know my personal hero, Brad Swale, the voice of Lan Hikari from the Mega Man NT Warrior anime English dub, is going to be there, and I have always wanted to meet that guy. He's also Light Yagami if you've caught up with the Death Note dub, which is, I would dare say, a national treasure. But seriously, I have a huge amount of respect for Canadian voice actors, especially the folks that are still very much involved in the industry to this day. I know that the English dub for Dragon Quest The Adventures of Dai was done by Blue Water Studios, if I'm not mistaken, so that was especially a nice revelation. And yeah, folks, Lucas Gilbertson, Brian Drummond, Carol Ann Day, all them. Major shoutouts. And with that, we are now on to Astra and Romulo. Romulo is a character that was also returning from Spark 1. Actually, I didn't even... Yeah, well, yeah, like Fark himself. I was going to say, I don't think I mentioned Spark 1 much, but... yeah, no. He is an ally for Spark, but he doesn't quite trust Fark. And that's understandable because Fark originally worked for the villain Freum, who we've actually been pursuing. And so Astra here has revealed herself as an agent of an AI named Clarity. Flint, however, told us before we duked it out to never trust Clarity, and so Clarity now sees us as a threat. Astra was trying to take us out, but we've taken her out. She turned out to be a robot this whole time, and Romulo is fine. I think he's fine anyway. We don't see him in Spark 3, unfortunately, which I don't think is a bad thing to spoil, because it's a shame. Spark 3, by the way, that has a console version, which did come out this year, I do believe, and it's not Xbox, it's surprisingly Nintendo Switch, but big shout out to Lake for managing to get a Switch port of a Spark game going. That's seriously a cool thing to have been alive for, in my personal opinion. I really do love this series. And, yeah, welcome to the final stage of Apocalypse Thruster. So, we are in a giant jet thruster that is crashing onto the home planet of the Formies, which, according to the lore, I believe is the moon, but terraformed, and this is a far-flung future long after we, the human race, has gone extinct. Or something like that. Spark has some very interesting lore that I don't think often gets touched up upon as much as it should. But yeah, the general race of beings on our home planet are known as Formies. They are like ants, if you will, cosmic alien ants, if you will. It's pretty cool stuff. So here we go. I'm trying to pull off this last gem to get us on over to the checkpoint. I think I can pull it off. Ah, that was so close, though. Let's try this once again. I'm going to keep going for this because this will save a lot more time than going through the level, at least up to a certain point. But even then, it's still a wonderful trick to show off. And all I'm really failing at is just, like, getting the transition from one point to the next, but we got it. So we're chilling now, and we just got to go up a vertical portion or two of the level itself. You can go up to a second level. You can skip going up the vertical chamber here, but this is where the game's problem that I mentioned with going up slopes and running up slopes really comes into play, and this is where you really have to be mindful of anything that you can just bonk into, because doing the entire climb from normal gravity is a chore, and you're better off just going all the way down, which wastes time anyhow. And Haxum, we're in outer space, but what exactly is the deal with that little blue fire thing going on and the outside of the platforms?
So, going outside basically drains your health. And one thing about health is that you can parry death itself.
Well, yes.
I'm not joking.
Yeah, you can technically parry death itself, but in that case, I think that's one of the exceptions, if you will. So here's Freum Mark III. This is also a boss that did appear in Spark 1, because Fark has a playable story that Spark 2 does take cues off of in the general 2D to 3D adaptation here. Also, sorry, flashing lights warning. Freum also likes to use screen flashes, but only in this phase, and he's also going to be doing the little mid-health recovery spiel again that Astra and Float had going, so... But luckily we are on the final phase, and then we'll be on to the Mark Ultimate, which will be our final boss fight. Now, normally I like to set up a little trick where instead of having to up-patch to 1.3.0 to show off my favorite version of the final boss theme, which is a amazing cover of the Spark 1 final boss theme, we're not going to bother with that. We're just going to move forward, and it's a bit of a shame, but hey, welcome to anime, because we literally turned into Super Fark, and there is a visual difference going on right here. But fun fact, Fark's normal state was also supposed to have a redesign going at first that did fall in line with the whole transformation from his normal self into Super Fark, but Lake ended up keeping it in anyway, and yeah, we're now just fighting against an amalgamation of Cell and Frieza, I guess. So, Super Form is unlockable, but you have to collect all of the medals, both score and time, and you also have to get gold and platinum. So, admittedly, anyone that has not played as Super Fark yet, I don't blame them for it, but hey, at least you get to do it here. Also, these cutscenes, you cannot skip those. You can't skip those no matter what you do, and that's why we're going to have to watch out these cinematics. It's one of the rare moments of the game that does that. And I have had several friends tell me this whole entire battle chamber, it's basically, it's Xemnas. It's just Kingdom Hearts 2 Xemnas. And I see it. I very much see it. Oh yeah, you can pause. You can try to skip the game, this cutscene, but you will pause. So that's never time optimal. And speaking of time, we are on the final phase, so that will be once we get the final hit going. Just a reminder, though, that this is not my only run of the schedule. Stay tuned for some Curse Crackers pretty soon, but for now, let us bring this on home. Oh, and I like to think of the aura as a Kaioken knockoff. Shout out to Dragon Ball. And that's time. So that's not a PB, but that's not a problem either, because the nice thing about our timing system is that we equally allow the use of RTA, IGT, but also the loadless time remover that I was trying to use for this particular run. The problem is, sometimes if it goes a bit far off ahead, then there's not really much you can do about it. But yeah, loadless time remover is the fastest way of clocking in your time for the leaderboard, and it is a very handy script that I do believe was formed by a Japanese runner, so shout out to the Spark community. And yeah, as we see the final blows exchanged, I want to take this time to thank the entire Spark speedrunning scene for just showing a huge interest in making these games go fast. I would give a big shout out to Shovel Claws, The Mimic, Nick Cart. I would also definitely say Haxim, who is a wonderful Spark 3 IL runner himself. And yeah, there's quite a bunch of us here. I would also give a shout out to Funk Master Dre, who ran this at GDQX in 2019, which is what inspired me to pick up this run. And if you'd like to join the Spark speedrunning scene, our Discord server can be found on SRC with any of the Spark game leaderboards. We also even have a nice mod made by one of our own, who is a Sparkle Gem, for a mod of Spark 1 called Recharged. It's some pretty cool stuff. And yeah. One last thing on my usual business order as per this final dialogue. Nope.
Nope.
And that will be this game. So, quick reminder, you can get this on Steam. You can also get this on an Xbox One. It's also backward compatible with the Series XS. I was also going to say shout out to Dragon Ball Daima, which is going to make its first episode debut on October 11th this year. So, yeah. Not much else to say, but, yeah. Folks, if you want to check Haxim out, it's, I believe, H4XM_ on Twitch. Is that correct?
Yes.
And yeah, with that in mind, if you are unable to catch me with Curse Crackers, I am TempestMask1000 here on Twitch. You can also find me on Twitter at It's Tempest Steve and TempestMask on Blue Sky, and a YouTube channel of the TempestMask1000 name. And yeah, we'll go ahead, take a quick break, and we'll be back soon with Curse Crackers. But in the meantime, thank you so much for letting me showcase this game, and I hope you enjoyed the run. Don't touch that dial, folks.
That gut punches.